All right. Well, as everyone gets connected in here, and I see people starting to join, wonderful. I will go ahead and get things kicked off, and we will get started with the Lunch and Learn. So, good morning, afternoon, good evening, everyone, depending on where you may be in the world. My name is Eric Womerink, and I am one of the product managers over here at Decisions. And I'm going to lead today's Lunch and Learn. So I'll start with a brief introduction. We'll talk about the Lunch and Learn a little bit, and then we will just get started and kicked off here. So what we're doing today, if you're not familiar, this is your first time joining, this is our daily Lunch and Learn. So every day, at least Monday through Thursday, not on Fridays, but on every Monday through Thursday from noon to 1 p.m. Eastern time, we sit on this call with someone from Decisions, an expert of some area or some portion of the tool, or someone from the company. And it's a time for us to just have an hour of our time to answer any questions you may have. So it can be questions about how to do something in Decisions, about something you're stuck on, about what Decisions is currently doing product-wise, about where we're going. And so it's really just an open Q&A for you to ask any questions you want of me or whoever is presenting for the day. So that's what I'll be doing today. As I said, my name is Eric Womerink. Just a little background about myself and my expertise. I've been with Decisions about 8 years now, and I've worn almost every single hat at the company. So I joined when we were relatively small, so I've done everything from professional services, making big projects, doing tiny implementations. I've helped demo the product. I actually wrote code way back in the day. I did all of our security and IT ops compliance for a while. Just kind of when we were smaller, just helping to wherever I could. I did training for the past about 4 or 5 years, kind of helping lead that efforts, but currently I've transitioned over to the product management team, which is where I get to sit and help drive product direction. So I get to meet with customers such as yourself and present new features that we're going to release, or get feedback from you for ideas you want added to the tool. I then curate the roadmap and help make sure that we release those features. So if you have questions on that, about what we're doing in the future, about cool things coming out, that's kind of my current expertise, but I'm also happy to answer any other questions you may have, and we'll go from there. So the way this kind of typically works is, I will be on the call. There's a Q&A panel and a chat panel. You also can come off mute and talk to me, but go ahead and raise your hand or type in the chat and ask any questions you may have, and I will go ahead and start presenting on my screen the things that I can do. And so let me look at, there were a couple pre-submitted questions, but I don't see those individuals on the call yet. Oh, sorry, didn't mean to share that. So let me pull this over here. We do have one. Okay, we do have one pre-submitted question. I'll go ahead and answer that one because that person is in the call. And then Jeremy, I see that you just posted in the chat as well. We'll get to that one too. But let's go ahead and I will start with this question here if I can get my screen. Okay. The question is from Dave. Howdy, sir. I know you said you've already answered this, but I will go ahead and show on my screen how I would solve this.
Yeah. So just real quick, like a high level thing we're trying to do is go in and use the great USPS module for when our customers, submit their information. I was just trying to figure out, and I figured it out through active form flows of, you see a lot of forms today where they'll ask a user to put their zip in first because they're going to ask that zip, and then it auto populates the state and the city, which is great and helpful. Plus it also keeps, good sanitized data coming in your door. I just was kind of struggling with figuring out the specifics, but Kristen was really great on Slack to help talk about using the set control step, which my trouble was I would create the data in the active form flow. Then I would go use the USPS module. That worked fine. But then I was figuring out, how do you pass that created value from the USPS API to go back to those actual like text boxes in this case? And Perfect. So the unlock for me was that oh yeah, set control value. I was like, okay. But then I was struggling with multiple controls, because if you use, like, for example, one of the things maybe you talk about, Eric, is like how it pushes out an array of data, but you don't actually have to break down that array. You just have to go map it very specifically. And that's what I got tripped up on, was the data mapping of, okay, it's creating city, state, and zip, returning those. How do I map each of those? Because it's just putting them out in a blob, right? So yep. I figured it out, but yeah, I'm interested to see. And I have another use case after that if we have time. So, but cool. Jeremy's got another one too. So
Certainly. Yes, cool. Let me, yeah, I'll walk through the solution because it should be just a couple minutes. Like you said, you already solved it, but for the benefit of everyone else on the call, yeah, let's just do it real quick. So the USPS module is an installed feature of decisions. If you're unaware, you can go to your systems, system settings, as long as you're an administrator on the portal, go to administration features, and you'll see a list of all the things that you can kind of integrate with or that come with pre-built out of the box functionality on decisions. The reason we don't install these out of the box is we're simply just not trying to overload your install with a bunch of toolbox steps and settings that you potentially don't need. So if you want one of these features, like putting QR codes on your forms or integrating with MSMQ, messaging queues, or using Datadog to pull data from a monitoring system, you just come into here, you can look at the details for that thing, and you can go ahead and install it. One of those features is a USPS integration to connect to the USPS REST service that they have and pull back information about like cities, state, zip code, those sorts of things. I already went ahead and installed this because I got the question pre-submitted, so I was taking a look at it. So I have that here. The only other thing you need is you need a user access code from USPS, which I believe is free. So you can just go register for that from their SDK website. So that's just a high overview. So I went ahead and did that. What that does is once you set that user in the system settings, you come in here, and now in your toolbox under integration USPS, you'll see a bunch of new steps that you can use to integrate with that API. So there's get cities by zips multiple, get city by zip, get information by zip, so on and so forth. Normalizing addresses, that's, like you said, a common use case for people using addresses. I grabbed get information by zip, which is because it's a really simple API. You give it a zip code and it gives you back a response. Now this structure that it gives you back was generated by the integration. So it's nothing you have to do as developers, but what you get, or as a person creating the integration, but what you get back is this output, which is potentially a list of zip codes. That's just to standardize it across the other web services, but you'll get back the city, the state, the zip, and potentially an error if we got an error with whatever information you tried to send in. So that's just general workflow steps. You go the step into here, you put in your zip code, you run it, and you're going to get the data back, kind of as a structure. You're going to get it with zip, state, city, and I have no errors. So that's Reno, Nevada, 89501. Fun fact. So that's the API, that's the integrating with USPS. Now the original question was, I want to put that on a form. So if I open up my form, oh, that's the flow. If I open up a form I've already built, I have a zip code text box, which actually I realized just as I said the word text box should be a number box where you type in your zip code as a number. That's fine, I'll leave it for now. And I want to pull back city and state. I'm going to put them into just labels. But again, what we're going to do, you can actually push that data to any type of control that you want on here. So I set up my form. I have a text box. It's called zip code. I have a label called city label with the data coming back called city. And I have a label called state label, the data coming back called state. So the way active form flows work, which are super cool, is active form flows are a way to run a flow at any point on the form that you need to go either fetch data, calculate data, or run validations or visibilities against your form. So it's a way to do all sorts of work to try to kind of standardize data on your form, fetch data on your form, put validations or visibility. And the way these flows work is they inherently know about all data that's on your form. So if I look at the data explorer, I can see all of the form data. If my form had any input data, such as someone passed in data to my form, I would also see all of that data as well. So it inherently knows about that. You also can pass in additional data, but then you go do whatever your work you want to do. Like I go call that flow that I just showed you called, fetch, fetch data info by zip code. And then you have the work of pushing that data back to your form. Now, the way that works is underneath your toolbox, under form rules, because this does both data and rules and all sorts of things, you get these series of steps. These steps will allow you to set or clear validations on forms, allows you to enable or disable controls, or it allows you to set control values, such as drop-down picker lists, or in our case, the labels value of city and state. And so the way any of these work is, say I want, like I've already had this one because I was testing. I already set the city label to whatever city came back from my API. If I wanted to do it for the state, it's you drag the control over, and the first thing it, or step over rather, and the first thing it asks is, hey, what control value are you trying to set? And again, if I look under the form data properties, when I'm mapping data, I can see all of the controls that exist on my form. So I will grab state because I'm already setting city. And it says, cool, that's the control you're trying to set, right? What's the value you're trying to set on your state label control? And then this is where I can just go, this is typical data mapping and decisions. I go find the output from my flow. I look into it deeper because it could be an array, even though it's not. And I'm just going to grab the first result of that API, and in this case, grab the state. So I'll map that. And that's all you have to do. Now it will set that controls value. And it's the same process for enabling or disabling or hiding or showing them. You just go grab the what kind of interaction you're trying to show on the form and then map it to the form data that you have. And that should be it. The last thing you set up in this active form flow is when you want that form flow to run. I'm going to run it whenever anyone changes the zip code value. And now we just do a quick test. So to test active form flows, the best way is to put your form in a flow. So where I have run zip form, I'm just calling my form to test it. I go ahead and hit debug, and this should work just fine. I type in 89511, and suddenly my rule ran. I can go see exactly how it ran, what happened, what values got set, and I see that Reno, Nevada got set. If I change this to Chesapeake, Virginia, I see that it's Chesapeake, Virginia. And if I type in some bad data, nothing shows up because there's an error that occurs, but let's just try that. Where's that? Okay, that's not a real zip code, but you can play with it now. 12358 is not a real zip code. Is 12345 a zip code? Ah, that's Schenectady, New York. Cool.
Schenectady, but we'll let it pass.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with all of the cities in New York. Schenectady. It's an interesting name.
And this is actually exactly how I did it. I didn't use a subflow. Cool. I just put everything in one flow.
That's fine.
But yeah, no, that works really well. And yeah, it's now I understand why a lot of websites are putting the zip first, because they're just using the same functionality from the USPS. So
yep, super easy. What's really great about active form flows, the reason we kind of shifted to this model rather than we used to split up validations and visibility and data flows all separately, but this gives you one coherent control of being able to do all of your form interactions in one process. So, imagine I could put a rule here that says, enable this if a checkbox is checked. So enable them to change the city and state if they check this checkbox. You throw a rule, it says, is checkbox true? Yes, show control or enable control. So you can do like rule type, conditional based formatting of your form based on kind of this flow. So now it just gives you one active control of how you set, kind of dynamic behavior on a form. So really cool. But yeah, if that's how you did it, that's how I would recommend doing it. All right, cool. Good question, sir. All right, next one came in. Let's go ahead and read this from Jeremy. It says, how would I go about taking a list of items of a defined type and starting a workflow for each item so that each one is an independent process? Oh, what a great question. Okay, I will show you. And I love your question. So we're going to say, I don't know, list kickoff process. So as I understand this, and correct me if I'm wrong, sir, but the idea is you have a list of something, like a list of accounts, a list of invoices, a list of claims on an insurance policy, whatever, a list of something. And you say, for each item in the list, I want to go initiate a workflow, but I'm not pausing and waiting for that workflow to complete. I'm not having them run linearly. I need to go kick off one or many workflows at the same time and then just let them go do their own thing for every item in my list. That's a wonderful question. Let me show you a couple different ways to do that. Correct. Okay, cool. I got that. Great. So let's first get a structure. Well, I guess I don't really need a structure. Let's do it just to make this example a little bit better. I'm going to create a really simple structure. It's just going to be a flow structure. I like the invoice example, like you need to process a list of invoices. So we're going to take, without caps lock, invoice here. And an invoice has an ID, number, and it has a, submitter, which is a string. It has a date of submission. which is a, some number. Oh, I guess that's not a number. Sorry, that's a date. And then it has an amount, which is a number. Cool. So I have some structure, some defined data structure. In my case, it's invoice of things. So if I have a flow that is, let's call this, process invoices. Oh, good, my service compiled. And somewhere I have this list. Now you put on your imagination hat. I'm going to create a fake list of invoices. Pretend that you got this from a database, or that someone filled out a form, or that you called a web service and you got a list of invoices. I'm going to just mock up the data for now. So we do that. I'm going to create a couple of fake invoices. We have a $1,400 invoice with an ID number 123. Submitter was me. I probably want more details here. And then we have an invoice for $8,000. ID number is 773, and the submitter is Aaron, and he submitted it a week ago. Cool. Somehow I have a list. Could be 2, could be 1,000, could be 500, whatever. A couple ways to do this is we need to somehow split this list up and run a flow for every item in the list. And there's 2 cool ways I would accomplish this, or at least 2 ways off the top of my head I would accomplish this. The first is you can see in your favorites here, there's this for each element list step. There's also under data iteration, I think it is where it is. Nope, not there. Where is my, maybe flow management iteration? Nope, that's file management. There it is, iteration. You have a way to go through a list of items in a step. So you can go through each item one by one for each item in the list. You can go through a list of items one by one after you group them. You can group lists of things together smaller in a bigger list and then send them out as a smaller list. You can chunk them up just by a number. So you can say, give me 10 items 10 at a time, and a couple other ways to do this. But the 2 steps I would investigate here are just a for each, where we loop through them one at a time. And then I'm going to talk about this cool step, run flows for list, in a minute. But what you do here is I would say for each, and this is going to take items one at a time and then hand them out the next path until there's nothing else in my list here. And then it goes down the done path. That's how a for each loop works. So I take my for each, I'm going to pass it in my list of invoices, and I'm going to hand it out each invoice singularly, one at a time, and then the index of where it exists in the list. Cool. But here's the problem. If I just say run subflow, and let's pretend I've already created a flow that is, process single invoice, does whatever. Let's, again, imagine that I built a really complex, great flow here that goes and processes a singular invoice. But if I just run it this way, and, I guess the input of this needs to be an invoice. Hold on. I will get there. Voice, there we go. Cool. We have a problem here, and that is that most things in decisions run sequentially. So what happens if I go to run this is it gives me my list of invoice one at a time, and it ran subflow 1, then came back, ran subflow 2, came back. There was no other items in my list, and it ended. So it worked the way I expected. But the problem is what if there was a pause in subflow, in this subflow? What if there's a task here, and the task is for someone to go, review the invoice and approve it? We'll pick our USPS form because it works. We'll assign it to me. Sure. I don't know why I have google.com there. That's fine. The assignment name is do something. The action name is okay. But here's the problem. I have a list of invoices, and it hits the first invoice, and there's a task now on that form. The second invoice is waiting to run until this flow is done. Like I said, the flow runs sequentially. So flow ran, it's waiting for subflow to complete before it comes back to the next item in the list, and then sends that out again to go run the invoice again. You might want that. You might want your invoices to be handled one at a time, but I don't think that was your question. Your question was so that each item is an independent process out, not tied to anything else. Though you can do that, but it's the way you run your subflow. So you can run subflows synchronously so that it runs in order, like I've shown you here, or there's a step here, and it's probably just under flow management. Nope. Oh no, it's under flows. Silly me. So if I come down here to flows, which I'm losing my mind. Why don't I see flows? Designer entities? Aha, designer entities flows. You'll see here that you can pick or create flow, which is what I did, or start linked flow or start subflow asynchronously. And asynchronously means, another way to say this, oops, sorry, deleted that with the wrong button, is also called fire and forget. So what this will do is it will just kick off the flow, whatever flow you pick here. So I can pick the same exact flow, my process single invoice, and I could say pick, and I pick each invoice. But instead of waiting for any data to return or come back, it says, I started the flow. Here's the tracking number, the tracking ID for that flow. And then I'm just going to carry on to the next step, whatever next step is in your process. So now, even though there's an assignment in my subflow, and I could see 2 assignments got made, it's going to run, kick off that process, let it run and do its thing, and then continue moving down my path. So this is more of a design for parallel type processing, or not really parallel processing, but like kicking off, instantiating other processes from one list and not waiting for them to complete. Now, what's great is if you have this tracking ID and eventually, like later down my flow, 30 steps later, I do want to see if that flow completed properly, you actually can see, wow, what is that step called? It's like did flow end success, wait on flow end. Yeah, so you can actually go wait and make sure that the flow ended appropriately. But this is, I wanted to build this out step by step to kind of show you that's the idea, is you can kick off processes asynchronously and let them go run on their own. And if you want to check in on them later, great, you can. Now, that's all fine and dandy. Everyone likes that. There's one interesting problem with this, is say you had a list of, let's call it 10,000 invoices. When you kick off an asynchronous process without doing any additional setup here, it's all going to run on what's called one processor thread. You can do multi-threaded processing, and I'm not going to dive too much into this on the Lunch and Learn. It can get a little bit more technical and complex. If you're interested in multi-threaded processing, we can talk about that. But instead of building my own loop and handling the items one at a time and looping it back and forth, there's a really cool step that just kind of does it for you. It's called run flows for list. And it's a really, really powerful step that just basically takes in a set of data and will run a flow for every item in the list for you. So now you can say my input type is invoice. And my output type, if I want to then like massage data or change data out, I can say output type is here. And then you go build whatever workflow you want to run inside of here. This is an iteration type flow. So this flow takes in an item and optionally returns a value for each item in your list. And just by saying it's an invoice, I already have input as the invoice into here. So now I can say, go run my process. You could still call subflows in here. That's totally fine. I don't have to call this one asynchronously because the asynchronous behavior is handled outside of here. But now I process my single invoice. I build the logic into here. I hand in my input as invoice data. We're good to go. What's cool about this step is now, instead of building this loop and managing a loop and lines coming through it, my input list is my list of invoices, and we don't care about null results. It's just one step. Take in a list of things and run this flow for every item in the list. The reason I would recommend this step is not only does it reduce the number of steps you have to manage, but you now can choose that run behavior here on the step itself. So you can say it is synchronous. So when it runs items in the list, run the subflow synchronously or run it asynchronously. And wait for the results to come back, because if they're returning data, we want to run data back. Or just put it in a work queue and let the work queue handle it based on processing power. Again, you get, or apply multiple threads to it and start assigning them individually to each individual thread. Again, this gets a little technical and I'm not going to go too far into it, but this step allows you to say, take in a list of things, run a flow for each item in the list, and run them all on synchronously, run them asynchronously, put them in a work queue, etc. So these are two options that I would explore to hopefully solve that, or to build out that process. I think it's great. All right. Hopefully I didn't go too far. Oh, good.
You can kill this stupid thing. Just smash it with the hammer or whatever.
What's that? Sorry, your audio was a little bit muted there, Jeremy.
Yeah. So for that, if I wanted to just be individual processes, what would my run behavior would be the best choice there? Would it be
For
the
this,
async and wait? This way, it's like if I'm going to like say take in 5 records and I need to make an assignment for each one that just one could be done today, the other one might not be done for a week.
yeah, I would put it in a thread job.
Okay.
Thread job essentially says I'm going to allocate a number of processing threads that this could be placed into. And then it put it in its own work queue. And as processing threads are available, it will run all those. Again, for simple assignments, you won't even notice that that happens.
So yeah, I don't, for what my thought use cases wouldn't be a lot of records, probably no more than 10 at a time.
Yep. The only reason I would build it over here with a discrete for each step is if you wanted to put additional logic to determine like which sub process to run. So you could say invoice 1, run some rules and call process A that is synchronous, but then call process B that's not synchronous. So this gives you more control over what happens. This is just, I have a list of things, go run the flow for every item on the list.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
both should meet your needs, especially in a simple assignment use case.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet, sir. All right, cool. Let's dive into the next question here. I have a couple more. So if I'm out of order here, I'm sorry. I should be able to get to all of them. We still have 30 minutes. Next one comes in from Jessica. Sorry, you're not allowed to ask questions in these calls anymore. So we're just going to skip that one. I'm totally kidding. Jessica is a good friend of mine, former employee.
Hello.
Hello. How are you? All right, let's take this out. Wonder if I'm missing a setting somewhere for having a user-defined control resize to fill the cells where the user-defined control lives on the form. Do you want to share your screen? We can take a look together. That's probably easier. I would try to build something, but if you already have the example, let's look.
Gotcha. Let me remember how to use Zoom again.
Are you guys not on Zoom anymore?
No, we use Google Meets. And I'm not seeing that option.
We might have to make you a panelist to share your screen. Let me see if I can do that. Promote to panelist.
I just did it for you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right, I'm back. Cool. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Can you guys hear me, by the way?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, cool. All right. Can you see the flow designer?
I do. I see a form.
Perfect. So I'll run it in debug and then we can go look at the settings. But essentially what I'm looking for is for user control, I'm looking for it to kind of resize to fit the cell that the user control is on in the form. Like similar behavior to what the data repeater does, where it will resize vertically to kind of fit. So like if I expand it, this will resize. But what I'm finding is either I'm missing a setting or maybe 6 doesn't have that as an option. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So so it's just a user control.
So
what's the user control? Is it built in a grid? Is user control built in a grid?
Yeah. So if I open this up right now, the grid setup, is 1 star by 1 star. And then, same with the data repeater. These are both are all resizable. Yeah. And then if we look at the parent grid that these are on.
Yeah, resizable.
Oh yeah, resizable. So am I missing a setting, or maybe might be a feature request?
Could be a 6 thing.
Okay.
You're on 6 whatever. Click the user control. I don't know off the top of my head, but let's look at the properties for it. It'd be pretty obvious. If you click size and tabs, is anything set there? Okay, so it does have width and height 300, 200. That doesn't look 300, 200 to me. That's the actual control size. Huh. I don't know if that would do anything. Try setting those to something crazy, like 0 and or like 1 and 100. I don't know. 10 and 100, perfect. Does that change anything about the way the form loads? No. Okay, okay.
I can export this to you, and I mean you don't have to do it right now, but
Let's
I
do
don't
it.
have a version 7 that I can
Yeah.
test.
Do you want to send
in.
it to me and I could test it in 8 real quick?
Yeah.
Might be really simple to build. Actually, yeah, just go ahead and email that to me real quick.
Yep, I got you.
Unless you forgot my name. Eric, ERIC at decisions.com.
Eric.
Yeah. Let me test it. It could be something we fixed in a newer version. It could also just be something that we haven't done. And then in which case, yeah, we'll submit a feature request. That seems silly. It seems like that should work. Let me go ahead and take over screen share and get back over here.
Oh yes, back to you.
Okay, fine. I got it.
And then I don't want to skip the line here, but I was about to hit send on another question, so I'll get back in queue. But let me go and send this over.
Yeah, go ahead and send the email over. When I see it pop through, we'll test it real quick. And yeah, we got a couple other questions going on.
Okay. I'll let you go to the next one and you come back to it.
Cool. Yeah, this is a big day. Lots of questions. I like it. All right, cool. Let me see when that email comes through. I will address or go back to that. We'll take a look on version 8. Okay, but a question did come in and I started to build this, but I don't think I understood the question correctly. I see you're on the call, Manal, and please feel free to type in more context here. But the question originally is, I have 2 data repeaters on a form. You need to convert each line of a data repeater into a PDF. You already created a PDF from Word template with tokens. Cool. However, when the user adds more than 1 line of data in the repeater, it doesn't populate on the PDF. Is there any way to get multiple lines of data converted to a PDF by using a Word document? Okay, so I started to build something similar, or at least what I thought you were intending to do. I didn't do 2 data repeaters in the form. I only did 1. But the idea being is that, like, yeah, you have some repeated set of data on a form. You put these in here. And so I guess my clarifying question is, did you want each individual line to become its own PDF, or does each line on here become a line in a PDF? And I'm not quite sure what your intended use case is there. So let me talk about both and see if this answers your question. And if not, then we can clarify. So I built a flow. Calls my repeater. It calls my form. Now the repeater I built is just a repeated list of strings. So the output of this is just going to be a set of strings that are typed into here. So when I get all the strings coming out, for example, if they have multiple lines of data, all show on one PDF. Yeah, okay. So like if I run this form and I have this PDF or this line here, and then I add another line, and then I add a third line, like all of this is going to then get converted or created as a PDF, and then that gets sent out. Yeah, so the steps that you're looking at, I'm assuming, are going to be under file management, and there's going to be some Word steps inside of here, right? No, integration Word. Uh-oh. Man, I'm showing my ignorance. We reorganized this toolbox, and I have completely lost all my steps. No. Word. Where's all the Word document steps? I just need to go find the Word document steps. They exist under data MS Word. Okay. So data MS Word. There we go. Okay. So if you're creating PDFs, oh gosh, you're doing some sort of stuff. There's a bunch of steps into here that allow you to do stuff with Word. Like taking 2 Word docs and combining multiple Word documents together, adding images to Word documents, converting it to HTML. One of these is converting it to PDF. And what you said is replacing tokens in document, I believe is what you used. So the original question said, yeah, you created a PDF from Word template by adding tokens. Okay, which is here, right? You can replace bookmarks or tokens with text in a Word document, or just you can replace straight text. You can search the document text for a certain word and replace it, and then output a Word document. And then, so let's just take this one. I don't have a Word document. Maybe I can go generate one really quick. But then you go and you can actually create a PDF from the Word document, right? Which is, well, how do you print? It's not print Excel sheet to PDF. Where's the step that creates the PDF? Add image, convert image. No. Uh-oh. Create PDF maybe? Nope, that's my flow I just created. That's not gonna work. Get text from HTML to PDF. Does this one work? Okay, well, I might have to go refresh my brain on the steps. But let's talk about the general idea and see if this solves the problem. So I think part of the problem maybe is that if you're looking at the output of a repeater, it's going to come out as a list. And if you have a list inside of there, you might get a list of lists. And that's kind of maybe where some of the creation of these things works, or maybe a little bit more complex. But if I look at the output of here, what I'm going to get is a list of something, a list of strings. This is going to be the output of the repeater, a bunch of different things all coming together. There's no single step that just says, that I know of at least, that says, take a list of things and create a document from them. So what you'll most likely have to do is, like you said, you already have a process that can add lines to a Word document or create PDF from Word document. Let's pretend that these steps are configured and work properly. What you'll most likely have to do is loop through the items of the list using something like I already talked about a little bit earlier, like a for each step, loop through the output of your repeaters and do that operation one at a time. So now I can say, for every item in that repeater, append a line to my Word document, or add this text to my Word document, or do whatever it is. And then at the end of that process, when I'm done, then you can go either combine the Word documents that are generated or create your PDF outside of here. But I would set up your flow structure to look more like this. You have a repeater, it runs on a form. The output of that is a list of things. It could be 2, it could be 1,000. Loop through those items one at a time, and do your conversion work to create your PDF and create your Word documents. And again, I apologize for my ignorance. I just don't know these steps very well. And then the output of that is, you'll create one singular PDF coming out of here. So that's where I would start my thinking. For the sake of time and for the sake of my knowledge of not knowing these steps very well, what we should do is, if this doesn't answer your question and all, if you want to dive deeper or actually have us help you build it more with someone who's smarter than me, go ahead and submit a support ticket. You just email support@decisions.com and we will get on a call to kind of walk you through it a little bit better. But my guess is the confusion, or the idea that forms output a list of items from those data repeaters. And like I said, we look at this on a call together, but if it's a list of lists, that's where it could get a little bit confusing as well. You'll need to do a couple different manipulations of that list before you actually can process it. But great question. I will, if you want more help, let me know. We'll hop on a call with you. All right. Cool. Next question coming in. Oh, you got the email. All right, cool. I have the example. Let's import your example, Jessica, and see if version 8 just fixed this. For importing people, you can always import up to newer versions, but you can't import back to previous versions. So, okay, so we run your form or your flow. Yeah, this is not resizing as well as I was hoping. So let's look at this. Look at the control here, user control. Yeah, I would have expected this to resize a little bit better. Respect to tabbing, set max size. No. Okay. I was just hopeful it would work, and we fixed it. So my guess is, Ms. Potter, that this is a bug or a feature request. This should just be able to resize. My guess is that it just hasn't yet. So
okay, no problem. I'll submit a ticket and I'll just attach that project.
Yeah, just do that, and I'll follow up with Janesh and guys.
Okay, cool.
That's really interesting. I wonder if it works for mixed type repeaters too. Anyway, I'll follow up on that.
I have not tried yet.
No one tries mixed type repeaters, so I'm not surprised. All right, cool. Thank you. I'll get to your next question. There's a couple more ahead of you, and then we'll get to the next one. All right. Anonymous attendee says, how do you edit a scheduled job to run multiple times a day? Great question. I actually may not know this one, but let's go look. I know under scheduled jobs, if you are creating a scheduled job that, basically if you're unaware, the scheduled jobs are just a way to instantiate or kick off a workflow on some set schedule. So you don't have to manually go kick it off. You can say every Monday morning at 8 a.m., email me a report of, the open tasks. Cool. You set up a schedule to do that. So we're going to call this, test scheduled jobs. The way you do that is you pick the flow to run. So let's say we go run my process invoices step. Cool. So every Monday morning, we're going to go process all the invoices. If the job fails, you can requeue it. If the job fails, you can create a task for someone to review. You can specify when the scheduled job is going to start. So maybe you're creating a process that starts July 1st, and you can specify when this ends, when you want to stop running that process. Now, the schedule, the question that comes in is, how do you make sure it runs multiple times a day? Well, you can come into here and you can look at the schedule. So you can say it runs daily, it runs the first day of the month, the last day of the month on a monthly schedule, over a certain time span, once a week, once a year. So if you say time span, so one way to make it run multiple times a day, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, is you can say run after a certain amount of time. So if you want to run it twice a day, you could run this every 12 hours. And then every 12 hours, this flow is going to be kicked off. So you can run it on a time span and basically saying after a certain set of time, go ahead and run this process. But that may not be your use case. It may not work because you may want to run it at 8 a.m. and noon and then 5 p.m. There's no actual set time span schedule. If you do specified job schedule, that just runs on a date. That's not what we want either. Yeah, I'm not terribly familiar with this. Daily schedule, you can say run at a specific hour, but that only runs it once per day. There may not be a way to run it multiple times a day outside of time span. So your options would be set it up as a time span so that you could say run after X amount of minutes, or you can go in and actually create multiple scheduled jobs. So you could have a scheduled job that runs at daily at 5 a.m. and then a separate scheduled job that runs at daily at 10 a.m. And it could still call the same flow. It's totally fine, but you'd have to set it up as two separate schedules that run. So I think that's the only way to do it. Either run it as a time span or set up multiple scheduled jobs. Cool. Great. Good question though. If there's something more better. Oh my gosh. There's something better we can do there as a product, like maybe a daily schedule that actually lets you set multiple times per day. I'll look at that. I'll actually just add that to our feature request review list so that we can talk about it, see if that's something we'll add. It's a good question though. All right, cool. Back to Dave, not to David. I think I get back to your question. Yep. And this one is, okay, big problem is I'm trying to solve is how to have a download attachment linker button on a report where it should let the manager download a copy of that file that was attached, during the original process. I have no issue accessing this attachment in the rest of the process, and it's sitting in the process folder just fine as a file reference. Got really close to help support, but cannot get the link to actually download the attachment. Okay, so you want to download an attachment on a report. I don't know. Let's try. Spend a couple minutes, see if we can figure this out. Download attachment on report. Oh, ignore spelling. That's fine. I'll fix it later. Okay, I need a report that has attachments. So maybe my documents report will work. Does this have any data in it? Okay, cool. It does. All right, preview images. Your favorite, Dave. Yeah, so let's do this. Let's just create a simple report. It has a document. It has a state. It has a created on date and by. I guess state's not really helpful, is it? Okay, whatever. Some report. And so maybe you want to come off mute and chat a little bit about this, but do you want a right-click action that says download, or do you want a link, like an actual calculated column link that you click and it downloads it? I'm guessing the latter. Can I add you? I can add you. Are you wanting to present your screen? You should be able to come off mute if you want to chat. Allow to talk. There we go.
There we go. Yeah. Yeah. So what we're doing is over there, we just have been running an inline field flow. as like the last column, and just this is for a contracting review process. Somebody, assigns uploads their own NDA that they want to use with us, right? So a contracts manager needs to come into her page, which is just, a report with some diagram tiles, etc. But she would also like to be able to download that attachment quickly. Now, there was a couple of things that we did through support, and a couple of different ways to do it, but it just doesn't seem to be working. Like I've been, yeah, I've just done that, run inline field flow, and then have been creating an actual flow. Actually, I think now it's you could do open URL inline field as well, but we've just been doing this one.
Yeah, but both of those would work. Run flow inline field is if you have a flow. I don't have any recent flows. Okay, we'll have to create one. Maybe it must be a special flow ID. Report action handler flow. Yes.
Yeah, got to create that.
Yeah. So we download a thingy. This shows a form.
And just as reference, I've got, a data entity flow execution extent, whatever. Anyway, I always get those words mixed up. And there is a actual field like NDA attachment. And it's a file reference. So it's storing it in there, and that's good. And by the way, I learned that you should do file reference instead of file data, because then it doesn't just dump, like a 10 gigabyte file into your SQL database, which is nice.
Correct. Yes. Dumps it on your file system, which is much better. Okay, let's pretend I've mapped the file in here. We'll pick, sure. So this, you're saying, doesn't quite work.
Yeah, I think you have to actually hit show UI, right?
Yeah, I don't know why. Yeah, I guess that's right. There you go. Oh, I don't have text there. Duh. Why is that? Cool. Run me. Let's try run report. You say run me, pops up here. I should be able to download it.
Yep.
So that works.
So I can't get there because I'm not doing constant, of course. I'm doing it through the the referencing back to that file that's saved in my entity. My data.
So you have a file reference ID here, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I have my selected row. I have all the things inside of the selected row. So we need to take the file reference field. Okay, so I need a data structure that has a file reference column.
Yeah.
Let's just make one. Okay. See if we can do this. How fast can Eric wrap a prototype? URL test. We'll call this, I need a file reference thing, which is of type. I just want file reference. I don't want file data reference. There you are. Okay. And then we have a name. Yeah, I know you don't like my file reference. That's fine.
It apparently never likes that, and it's just a thing, but it's apparently something you can just ignore.
It's a kind of an over aggressive validation for SQL. Yeah. That's really all it is. I need to create some data. So let's create some fake data. Oh, I guess I can't do a file reference there. Okay, let's do a flow that creates some fake data. Come back. I just need one row. That's all I need. So here, integration, nope, all steps, find types, database structures, URL test, create. Okay. Now we create one. And file reference will be, it's not just letting me pick a file, is it? Dang it. It's actually making me do the ID crud. Yeah. All right. Well, it won't be easy.
Do you want me to actually just share what I've built so far? Maybe you can kind of back into that, and
yeah, that might be easier.
Like kind of like where it's. All right. Yeah. If you can give me the ability.
I think I need to make you panelist. There you go. I'm gonna look at Jessica's question while you should be able to share now.
I'm gonna mute myself. Okay.
Oh, I can actually just answer your question, Jess.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm gonna answer Jessica's question because I know
no, you're good. I'm gonna back out into my.
That's fine. Her question's all around multi-select on reports. In version 8, yeah. version 8.2 we just released. So previously, no, there's no setting in 6 to say enable. I think there might be a global setting to say enable multi-select on reports, but not for individual reports. That's in 7.14 or whatever the latest one release is in 8.2.
Okay. So I wonder if like just changing, well, I don't even, this is an option, I haven't looked at it yet, but in the global settings, just changing like that keystroke that auto enables it. So that way, when they're going to copy something, it doesn't turn it on.
Yeah, that probably would do it.
Okay.
So that you avoid them having to do that. But yeah, I think there's 2 settings now. There's a way to change the keystroke on the individual report and to change it for like turn off for individual reports and pages.
Okay, cool.
So it's in newer versions, or at least I'm about 95% sure it is.
Awesome.
Sorry, you version 6ers.
We're working on it. We're working on it.
I know.
I gotta say, I'm missing active form flows. That's for sure.
They're so good. They're so good. All right, cool. Mr. Dave.
Cool. So I've got my download NDA here, right? And I've just got an edit flow ID. I did all that fun stuff, right?
Perfect.
So if I'll go in here, this is what was recommended to me. I kind of came on this my own, but support kind of confirmed this. But I think there's probably a couple ways to do this. But first was, let's go and actually get that cell by its name, right? So we want to do that actual selected row, and output that ID. Then go fetch the entities based on that ID, right? So ID equals ID, right? I mean, yeah. This is what I love about Decision, by the way. There's 3 or 4 different ways to do everything. So always open to what's best. So, taking that ID, all this fun stuff, and then just a quick end form session over here, where it's just, an open URL, and then it's, get that actual file URL from, so the entity result here. The heck did it go? Yeah, there we go. And then under there is the actual NDA attachment. And then from there is the file URL. And I've tried everything on there, every different type of data type, and it just doesn't seem to go anywhere.
So that doesn't work? Looks like it would work.
No, you'd think, right? So by the way, quick question, I haven't been able to find it. How would you actually debug a report?
Global debugger.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. So let's actually, we can do that together. So I want to see what happens here. It just doesn't give you like the real URL.
Yeah, it just doesn't do anything. Let me I apologize. We are tweaking our VPN settings. It's a little bit slow. It goes to Northern Ireland and then goes over to California and then comes back to the East Coast.
That's fine.
So yeah, all right. So let's just say I could do this, and it's just sitting. It just doesn't do anything. Right? There's no, and this one I know has a link. Yeah. So it's like, actually, let me just view this. Yeah, there is just a PDF that was updated there.
Cool.
Yeah, that'll download just fine. All right, so that's not working. So yeah, global debugger. I think we should go there. Is that
so
on the main page, or?
Yeah, I would open up another tab because we're gonna need to run the report and we'll have the debugger going at the same time.
Gotcha.
But yeah, if bottom left, there's a tiny little like gear tool thing. Yeah, that guy, and show global debugger. Actually, that opens up its own tab. We could have just done it that way.
Yeah. All right. So turn that on.
Yep. So turn it on. Go back. Run the report. And then once it loads, click the button. Okay. Back to the debugger. Now turn it off. Okay. Looks like that last one. Yeah. You have a bunch of, holy cow, you have rules. Do you have rules on that report?
Oh, yes. It marks it red if it is overdue.
Yeah, so that's just your color rule. That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. So you get cell by name. What's the output of that?
Results.
Yeah, so it doesn't like the ID. It didn't like the ID, and I'm guessing the ID is coming in here as null. Yep. So click get cell by name. Let's make sure the first one.
Always something simple.
Let's make sure this is okay. So it hands in the row and it doesn't output ID. Interesting.
Oh.
Why? Okay. Okay, well, ID and folder, oh no, they are different.
There's the report action, so it's getting something. Actually, oh no, I can't.
That's just the row. That's just the column
Yeah.
on the report. You do want ID. I don't know why get cell by name. Giving it ID. Can we go look at the report? Leave this open, but
Yeah.
click your other tab, go to the report. Do you have ID as a column here?
I don't, but I could.
Try adding it. And we can you can always hide it. Like you can add it, but
Yeah.
then hide it. But try adding it. I don't think this will work.
Let's see what happens.
Because you yeah, maybe that would work. I love the global debugger.
Well, now that I know what it is, I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah, it's a way to test either asynchronous processes or like case entities that have nonlinear
Yeah.
processes or report actions and page actions, those sorts of things.
Oh, there
we
we
go.
go. Why is it
So
always that simple?
It is always simple. So now what you can do is on that column, one of the
Yeah.
properties of that column is hidden. Just turn that on.
Hidden. Yeah.
Yeah, and it should still work.
Duh. Okay. Well,
Hey,
thank you. That's perfect. I learned 3 things today. So cool.
Look at that. And we got a meet earlier, so that's cool. I blinked what happened. You have to add, if you're fetching Andrew's asking in the chat, if you're fetching a column, Andrew, for in a flow like that, and you say like get cell by ID, that actually has to exist on the report definition. So we had to add that column of ID so that when he runs the flow, it actually can fetch the ID value. But then you can just remove it from visibility, so you just can't see it anymore.
Oh, okay, sweet. I was literally having the same issues yesterday.
I mean, like, what is it? Like problems come in threes or whatever. I know it's like celebrity deaths come in threes, but like it's always this happens when someone's like, I have this issue. Oh, I have this issue too. It's like, oh, perfect.
I'm definitely going to post this on Slack because I feel like more people need to know how to do this. So
yeah, that's Andrew's actually on the documentation team. That's something. Let's look at the documents,
nice.
Andrew, and see if
yeah,
see if that's something we should call out a little bit better. So, all right, cool. I think I got all the questions. It's just a couple of you guys left. So thank y'all for joining us and coming in and hang out. If you need anything else, just shoot me an email, eric@decisions.com, or join the next lunch and learn, and we'll be here. But appreciate everyone's time. Hopefully we got you some answers, and we'll all chat soon. All right, take care, everyone.